Good morning, everyone. This is my presentation about race, class, and gender in American history. The concept of race, class, and gender has shifted with time because of a too slowly evolving understanding of the equal worth of all people. And that will be the reason why it has shifted. People went through slavery, and because of that, it built a relationship between them. Because of religious aspect, because more awareness was raised as the time passed, because of market change, because of new industrial businesses. And how it changed is through movement. Civil rights movement, women's movement, which played a huge role in changing people's mind. For instance, more recently, TV and other media had helped create understanding and sympathy across ethnic and gender and financial divide. So in this presentation, I'm going to go ahead and explain to you by using primary sources how and why the concept has shifted over the years. First of all, let's start with race, which race, class, and gender go together. They're all like social problems. So before we go to this quote of Alexander Falconbridge about the slave trade, which is a primary source, I'm going to talk about race, class, and gender. Race, starting from the time of slavery, where people were treated in the worst possible way, the abolition and then the reconstruction, the concept of race was used in many use. White people use a biological difference to justify their actions of buying human beings, transporting them through abominable conditions for months to work into their plantation. So, to illustrate that, Alexander Falconbridge said, from the time of the arrival of the ships to the departure, which is usually near 3 months, scarce a day passes without some Negroes being purchased, Negroes being a reference to black people, and carried on board, sometimes in small and sometimes in large numbers. The whole number taken on board depends in a great measure on circumstances. So human beings being packed in a boat, chained without being able to move for 3 months, were treated in the worst possible way, and they will bring them back to the state to work in plantations where they would deny every human right. As for the concept of class, the concept of class has developed over the years in American history because society has become more open. The American Revolution, the Gilded Age to our present time, the process evolved slowly but surely. The 17th and 18th century were times during which economic, religious, and social development led Europeans to colonize new lands. This enabled class division, where some people were in charge of controlling the produce and other people were to produce. So, talking about that, so basically, people, rich people, were hiring poor people to work on the plantation under certain conditions, and of course, profit for them. And because of the market change, many people had more jobs, and the rich people got richer, and the poor people's situation evolved a bit, which changed the structure of class. People moved from one class to another. And there is also the aspect of marriage and the property of law. So before, women were denied every right. They were married and considered to stay home and take care of their kids. For instance, this primary code about married women's property law during the 19th century State began enacting common law principles affecting the property right of married women. Married Women Property Act differ in language and their date of passage span many years. So basically, many states, because of this law, change the situations, allowing women to write wills. The majority of states passed similar statutes in the 1850. New York Married Women Property Act was used by other states as a model as well. For instance, this first act says the real and personal property of any female who may hereafter marry, and which she shall own at the time of marriage, and she rent issues and profit therefore shall not be subject to the disposal of her husband. So there was a shift. So before a husband being in charge and making all the decisions, there were laws now that can protect women, which brings me down to gender. The expression of gender differentiation within culture and how it shapes social roles is important, meaning that since slavery, men and women were defined differently through the work assignment and their ability to behave. Men did harder work, mostly outside home, while women stayed in and took care of the house chores, the master's children, so back and forth. So basically, there was that, and there was the fact that lesbians and gays, in a way, LGBT people were not acknowledged at all. So to come back, these were mainly the reasons why the concept of race, class, and gender shifted. There was more awareness. People were beginning to be more open religiously, personally, and coming together as a community, which helped them understand that it was better to fight together than separate, which led, for instance, to this. Like, after everything Black people, for instance, went through, Rosa Parks, who is not only a Black person but also a woman from a lower class in this bus, um, refused to trade her seat for a white person because she was tired. She came from work because she couldn't take enough anymore. And that get her in trouble to the extent that she got arrested. But this fact gave people more motivation, showed people that they needed to come together and fight to make changes in their life. This quote from this primary source, different social groups saw different meaning in the revolutionary movement. While Philadelphia merchants believed independence would increase their wealth and shore up their social position, Philadelphia artisans believed that the revolutionary promise of equality and natural right would open up new opportunities for social advancement and political power. And for that, there was the Occupy movement of Wall Street, for instance, which is an international movement driven by individuals like you. All of us have many different backgrounds and political beliefs, but feel that since we can no longer trust our elected officials to represent anyone other than their wealthiest donor, we need real people to create real change from the bottom up. Organized in over 100 cities in the United States, Occupy's aim to fight back against a system that has allowed the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. We no longer want the wealthiest to hold all the power. And that happened because people came together. For instance, this primary source shows the Occupy movement, which is driven by individuals like you coming together to create real change from the bottom up. The word 99%, they find commonality within their diversity. They stand together, they advance together. So that was a huge change. And they said they will occupy together. And the last part of my presentation would be this demonstration of Donna Gottschalk holding poster, "I am your worst fear, I am your best fantasy." This is about, it was at Christopher Street Gay Liberation Day Parade, where gender people were being more assertive, people were asking others to acknowledge them, to respect their choices. I hope this showed how and why the concept of race, class, and gender has evolved over the history. over the time in America. Thank you.